We now begin our first session of the day and for the panel discussion on the topic, the state as de-risker, aligning academic excellence with national strategic mission. Let me introduce our esteemed panelist, Dr. Vibha Malhotra Sone, Head Technology Management Director and Innovation Protection Unit, CSIR. She heads the Technology Management Director and CSIR, driving collaborations with government, industry, and institutions for mission mode innovation. She also leads the Innovation Protection Unit, managing CSIR's IP portfolio with a focus on strategic and commercially valuable outcomes. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Dr. Vibha on stage. A big round of applause, please. More energetic. Thank you, ma'am. Next on stage, I'd like to call upon Mr. Sriraj Bharadwaj, founder, Exponential Integration BC Private Limited. Bharat is founder of Exponential Integration Venture Capital, bringing a unique blend of finance expertise and deep tech experience in AG tech, biotech, and climate tech. With a strong track record in venture investing and entrepreneurship, he is currently racing a 500 crore SEBI category AIF backed by leading institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Sridhar on stage. Welcome, sir. Please be seated, ma'am. Please sit, sir. Next on stage, I'd like to call upon Dr. Ramanan Ramanathan, Chairperson, National Expert Advisory Council on Technology, Innovation and Incubation of Department of Science and Technology, India. He is chairperson of the National Expert Advisory Council on Technology, Innovation and Incubation, and a member of the India AI Mission Governing Board. Former mission director of Atal Innovation Mission, Niti Aayog, he has been instrumental in building India's national innovation and startup ecosystem. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Dr. Ramanan Ramanathan. Thank you. Next on stage, I'd like to call upon Mr. Rishi Diwan, Associate, Startup India. Rishi Diwan is a strategy and ecosystem professional at Startup India, focused on enabling innovation, investment, and entrepreneurship. He brings experience across growth strategy and ecosystem building, working closely with founders, businesses, and institutions. Give it up for Mr. Rishi. Thank you. On stage, I'd like to call upon Professor Ashwin Mahalingam, co-founder, Okapi Research and Advisory Private Limited, Professor, IIT Madras. Dr. Ashwin is the Dean of Alumni and Corporate Relations at IIT Madras, with expertise in sustainable development, infrastructure, and large engineering projects. An IIT Madras and Stanford alumnus, he is also a co-founder of Okapi Advisory Services and a researcher in public-private partnership systems. Once again, give it up for Professor Ashwin. And to moderate this session, I'd like to call upon Mr. N. Nagaraj, Vice President, Digital Media, The Hindu. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Mr. N. Nagaraj. Thank you so much, and the session is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. I'm privileged to moderate this panel, many luminaries up on stage. My experience with startups has been 3 different stints with startups. One failed, one was successful, and one was acqui-hired. And that's it. That's my experience with startups. But having said that, privilege again to be here to speak to all of you. To set the context for this morning, there's a version of the last 30 years of innovation that goes like this. Venture capital funds breakthrough technologies, market selects winners, and the state's job is to stay out of the way. That story was never entirely true, and there is now enough evidence to say that. The internet was a defense research project. GPS was a military program. The foundational work in semiconductors, biotechnology, clean energy came from publicly funded research before private capital arrived. The role of the state was always central. What changed was whether we acknowledged it. India is now not only acknowledging it, it is structuring it deliberately. In the space of roughly 8 months, 3 significant policy instruments have come into force. The RDI scheme, 1 lakh crore rupees over 6 years, 20,000 crores allocated for this financial year, long tenor financing at low or nil interest, equity participation, and a deep tech fund of funds. This is not a grant program. It's a risk absorption architecture. The DPIIT 2026 startup notification issued on 4th February this year formally recognized deep tech startups as a distinct category for the first time, with a 20-year recognition period, acknowledging officially that these companies operate on timelines of 10 to 15 years. And ATRI, the ANRF Translational Research and Innovation Scheme initiative, which has named the TRL 4 to 7 corridor as its specific operating ground, the space between a proven lab result and a technology ready for field demonstration. In the light of all of this, I request Dr. Ramanan, whose experience spans different stakeholders in this process, to give a context to what the next hour is going to be.
Thank you, Mr. Nagaraj. And first of all, it's a privilege, a pleasure, and a great opportunity for us to all collectively deliberate on a topic that is so very important, not only for every one of us who is present in this audience, but also beyond, and for the nation at large, and I would extend to say to the world at large. I have had the good fortune, as Mr. Nagaraj said, to have been part of 3 what I call as entrepreneurial journeys. One was when I joined TCS in '81, when I graduated from IIT Bombay. And at that time, nobody talked about innovation, nobody talked about entrepreneurship, forget about startups. The opportunity was, how do you get good marks in IIT and go to a university abroad and then settle down there in the United States with a large company. But between 1981 to, I would say, 2010, we saw a revolution in terms of the IT as industry. And TCS, which was less than 1,000 people, and I was very fortunate to work with Mr. Mahalingam, who is Ashwin's dad. And we grew it from 1,000 people to 700,000 people. But yeah, a big hand to TCS. But I think what it more importantly did was set the context for Indian intellectual capability to be known to the rest of the world. And so we have never lacked for great innovators, great scientists, great thinkers, great artists. But India got known for its intellectual capability, and today you have a Satya Nadella heading Microsoft, a Sundar Pichai heading Google, Shantanu Narayan heading Adobe, and Arvind Krishna heading IBM. So this became very well known that India is a source of intellectual capital. In 2001 to 2016, I got the opportunity to work with CMC. Now, those of you who know CMC, it was National Computer Maintenance Corporation, which was formed when IBM left India because of political compulsions. And CMC focused on how you can leverage IT for domestic and societal benefit. So railway reservation system of Indian Railways was developed by CMC. The Bombay Stock Exchange trading system was developed by them. The CDSL, the first depository, was developed by them. All the ports and cargo systems across the country were developed by them, which enabled container management and supply chain. And the biometric systems, which were developed for all the police forces, were developed by them. And then they were involved in e-governance services. Now, there I realized the power of IT to be able to bring socio-economic benefits and socio-economic transformation. But from 2016, I got the opportunity to work with the Atal Innovation Mission, which was formed by the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister. And he looked at this problem very differently. He looked at it, India is a land of great capability, not only capability but potential. We have 1.4 billion people. More than 65% of our country is under 35 years old. More than 50% is under 25 years old. How do you charge this youthful energy that is coursing through this nation and convert it into a transformational energy for the nation? The second one was, we are one of the fastest growing economies of the world, and so we now have the ability to think and indulge in experiments which we have not thought of before, because we have the capital, we have the investment, and we have the potential. And the third one was technology was becoming affordable, accessible, available, and advanced because of changes, 3D printing, robotics, IoT, miniaturized electronics, AR, VR, do-it-yourself kits. These were becoming available. So his vision was, we have been a land of job seekers. Can we convert it into a land of job creators? And that is where a series of initiatives got launched by the government of India. And the last decade has been absolutely brilliant from my point of view, because coming from the corporate sector and seeing what is happening. What it led to was a democratization of innovation. Democratization at a school level. Forget about at a university level or at an industry level. Democratization of innovation. And the vision was holistic and evolutionary. Holistic because it realized that you cannot build a land of entrepreneurs and startups without creating a problem-solving, innovative mindset in our youth, starting from the schools. And that's how the Atal Tinkering Labs got established. Today we have 10,000 tinkering labs across the schools in the country, where young children between grade 6 to grade 12 are experimenting and tinkering with the latest of technologies that are evolving the solutions of tomorrow. 3D printing, robotics, and so on. How wonderful it is to know that students from 8th standard, girls' school in Thoothukudi in Salem, have created a solar panel IoT-based irrigation management system. You can see it on the net. You can see in YouTube an interaction between the Honorable Prime Minister and the young students there. And this has unleashed a whole wave of democratization of innovation. A number of initiatives started, but I think I want to bring your attention to the evolution of these initiatives. We started with initiatives like Atal Innovation Mission, DST, DBT, MeitY, launching a series of incubators. Why? Because we wanted our young students who have the capability to become job creators and potential innovators. And then came COVID. With COVID came the realization that we need to have Atmanirbhar Bharat, a resilient India which is not dependent upon the international world, but how we are able to build ourselves and how we are able to build the nation and how we become resilient. So that unleashed digital public infrastructure, and the leveraging of a digital public infrastructure and policy and technology interventions resulted in a whole slew of applications that grew between the 2021 to 2023. Now that led to the country realizing that we are now in a situation where we have to see manufacturing in India is possible, make in India is possible, and therefore a series of policy interventions like PLI were introduced to encourage manufacturing and make in India capabilities. Then came the National Quantum Mission, the India AI Mission, to keep in tune with what is happening in the rest of the world. So what we have seen, the evolution to this point, is a whole lot of national initiatives and national missions which have got spread across the nation, unleashing 200,000 plus startups, more than 125 unicorns, and I think all of you who are here, part of this team here and beyond, are responsible for it. So I want you to give a big hand of applause to everybody who has been involved in this evolution.
Dr.
At this
Ramanan,
point, I'll just conclude with one point. At this point, what is important is institutionalizing of this innovation. So we have got national innovation missions, but we have not been able to decentralize ownership and accountability of research, innovation, and development. And that is what this topic is all about. How do we de-risk all these innovations that we have, initiatives that we have done, and how do we bring it at the state level, at the district level, at the university level, at the school level, and take ownership and accountability for developing research, innovation, which will keep us not just as followers, but as leaders in the emerging world. So with that, I hope I've set the context.
Thank you, Dr. Ramanan. I like your focus on human capital and grassroots development. We'll come to that. That's one of the themes that we'll attack later in this discussion. Let's go to the biggest thing in this, which is money, capital. Sridhar, as an investor, you have the most external vantage point on whether the capital stack as it stands today holds together. When you look at the RDI scheme, the Fund of Funds 2.0, the 2026 Deep Tech Startup Policy, and the ATRI together, not as 4 separate schemes, but as a system, what is the single design choice embedded in this architecture that you believe most of us in this room and outside haven't fully appreciated yet?
Happy morning to every one of you, and so excited to be part of this discussion with this esteemed panelists and exciting audience. As part of this thought process, what I feel is amazing from Government of India as an initiative is like kind of Government of India is taking the risk from TRL 1 to 3, which is a huge risk, which is meaning that they are taking the risk of the technology, not the commercial part of it, but the technology. So validation of technology is definitely happening from the government side. From the commercial part of it is where it is up to the founders and the people who are in research. They need to have a little bit of vernacular intelligence, which means translation of a technology to a business, is where that part comes in, and VCs and other people have to come in as contributors to that domain. And taking the first part of the risk, which they are coming up initially, when we talk about 10 years earlier, as Sir would have highlighted, the amount of interest and investment and also effort put by the government in setting up multiple centers and incubators have been nothing short of phenomenal. So what we love to see is like kind of how these centers are being capacitated with the right amount of talent, and the funding coming through AIF instrumentation and other kinds of schemes, making sure that the right kind of research is being backed. So that like kind of a TRL 3 to 4, 4 to 5, making sure that the information from my side would be like kind of having some mentors who can translate research into business, is where India is going to become not just a, earlier we used to call ourselves as back offices of US. We have to become an innovation capital, and I see that innovation capital, even if 50% of the centers are becoming innovation capital, we are going to be so aggressive in our growth in multiple domains, be it AI, be it semiconductor, biotechnology, different frontiers. I'm meeting multiple companies daily, and I'm astounded by what they are bringing to the table. So I think this capital is going to become a huge translation and motivate founders to become entrepreneurs and business owners, just not like kind of a small startup, a small dukan over there, but making sure that this is going to be a revolution for India.
Thank you. Rishi, the capital stack now has distinct layers: the RDI scheme for institutional long tenor financing, the fund of funds 2.0 operating through AIFs for startup investment, and the revised DPIIT recognition framework. You sit at the point where all of this meets the founder. For an academic spin-off in this room today, not in principle but in practice, how do these instruments work together? Which door do they knock on first? And specifically on the Fund of Funds 2.0 and the new deep tech recognition, what does access actually look like at this stage?
Sure. So firstly, thank you for having me here. It's an honor and a privilege to be sitting in this panel. So in terms of what is the first door to knock on, I think the first door to knock on would be just get recognized. I think that opens a whole host of opportunities for startups, and I'd go one step back, not even look at deep tech fund to fund. I'd also look at early stage prototype development where you have a specific scheme for that, and then you can move to start the fund to fund scheme, and then you have another scheme for access to collateral free debt. So there's a whole host of opportunities that are existing in today, existing for startups today through Startup India. So getting recognized is probably the first thing I do, and then coming to where does access or what does it look like in terms of Startup India Fund of Fund 2.0 or in terms of the deep tech, the new revised definition. I think that is something that we're operationalizing as we speak. The new recognition framework, at least the deep tech part of it, is something that can be accessed by the website. And I think just continuously focusing and understanding what Startup India is doing, especially through social media, I think that is something startups should do, and I'll constantly encourage that. And because all of this eventually will be operationalized via the Startup India website. So a good standpoint to start on is just to keep a lookout on the new announcements that we keep posting.
Thank you, Rishi. Sridhar, just back to you for a moment. From the private capital architecture standpoint, does this new capital stack, does it produce founders who arrive at your door investment ready, or is there still a gap?
I feel there is still a gap because founders, in the sense, need to understand on how to look at from a research to businesses where there is a gap. I highlighted in the first part of the conversation as well. That's the real gap. In the sense is how do I know how much my company is worth? Venture capital will come from how much money he's going to make by investing in the company, when they can exit. So the founder should come with a point of view of how much am I bringing to contribute from a technology point of view, and also how am I contributing to the investor's point of view as well. If be it incubator or an investor who's putting in a check to the company, they need to come think of an angle of what value am I giving them? Am I giving them multiple exits, 5x or 10x? What kind of communication am I giving them? I can't tell in the sense this is the research, this is where it is going, and this is where it is going. How do I think from a monetary standpoint of view is where the thought process has to come from a innovator's mindset. That is where there is a little bit of a gap, I would say. And also the institutions backing should be able to help them in the senses making sure they play a role like a venture builder model while they are doing the research as well, so that like they can also hold a small amount of capital equity into their research commercializing into a venture, so they're able to build that ideation in the mindset of the founders, so that like when they come in, they become commercially mindful on what they are bringing to the table. That is where there is a little bit of a gap, because they should be able to tell in the senses, these are the risks and these are the benefits and this is what we can bring in. There is no guaranteed returns in these kind of investments, but this is what we can potentially give as an upside from a business point of view.
Thank you. Dr. Vibha, on the capital stack, your thoughts?
Well, on the capital side, basically, thank you so much for having me here, and I'm happy to see so many youngsters. Of course, there are a few grays and all like me, but yeah, having youngsters around, just kind of catalyzes the whole discussion here, and that's why we're talking capital and we're talking entrepreneurship and all here. Look, capital side, I think, as you said, government is really de-risking the whole thing. And the gap that you mentioned out here, so before that, I'd like to just bring in, sometimes in 2009 itself, the government through DSIR did come up with a scheme of scientific entrepreneurship and knowledge as equity. And of course, there were many gray areas left there. Probably at that time, maybe to enable, people interpret those gray areas in which way suited them, because every institution had to come up with their own guidelines based on those basic guidelines. And there were, instances there as well, where we said, the government said that, the startup, once you are there in service, you can help a startup. You can help catalyze a startup. And at the same time, if you want to be a part of it or maybe play a greater role, you can always take lien from your institution for 3 years, so that you work hands-on in the startup, help them, mentor them, and then come back. And in that process, if you want to take a bit of it, whatever you're sharing with them, not on any kind of fees or any basis, but just as a small equity, about 2 to 5% or 2 to 3% equity in that particular company. So that was actually really de-risking the startup. And the whole idea here was maybe a scientist would help his student, take on entrepreneurship here. So that was a very good scheme in the sense that it gave enough flexibility for institutions to have their own schemes and come up with their own guidelines for this. as well as at that stage itself, protecting that person or the scientist in service, from all kinds of audit and vigilance angles as well. That was the first step. And then, of course, came all these funding through AIM and now DPIIT that's playing a role. So the government has always played its role. At times, wherever required, whenever required, it's been there. And it's the risk appetite, I feel, which was not too much initially, but yes, maybe 2010 onwards, and now past 7-8 years, we're seeing a lot of risk amongst not only the youth, but also middle-aged people to take on that risk. That appetite has definitely increased. So that's a good sign with all these initiatives. Thank you.
Dr. Ramanan, I know that you wear many hats, but for this particular response, I request you to wear your academician hat. So what can the academic institution do to bridge that gap for readiness from the scientific side to take on capital?
Yeah. I think the academic institutions have an enormous role to play. Okay, and of course that everybody realizes that, but it is a sad fact that today 0.65% of our GDP is spent on R&D, and it is also a sad fact that 70%, more than 70% of this R&D funding comes from the government. Less than 30% or even 20% comes from the private sector. Now, both of these are big reasons to be addressed, but the universities can play a catalyzing role in being able to do this. And how do you do it? Number one, I think institutions should have a complete shift in their mindset. That can we become, instead of just publications and research papers being a hallmark or a measure of the success of the university and how many placements are being done from a university, that is the first thing every university goes and publishes. Can we move from that mindset to a research, innovation, problem-solving mindset? Can we move from publications to problem solvers? Are we creating problem solvers of tomorrow? And what I have found best, the universities which had incubators which address this head-on by launching challenges and having a challenge-driven innovation environment and an ecosystem, that becomes very useful. If I look at many universities which have successfully established incubators, including IIT Madras, the idea is, what are the challenges? And yesterday, Professor Ashok Zanjunwala brought it out beautifully. We need to address challenges in this country. And we have enormous challenges. We have 650,000 villages. We have 715 districts, out of which 115 are aspirational districts at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of basic access to healthcare, education, clean drinking water, sanitation, waste management, affordable housing, infant mortality, maternal mortality. These are challenges which are opportunities for research, development, and innovation to address and convert these million challenges into a million entrepreneurial opportunities for research and innovation. So the universities have to look at how we change our mindset, and also it's not just a student mindset, it is a professor mindset and the faculty mindset which needs to be changed. The third thing that is very important is, I still see many universities, I travel to so many universities, they're not even aware of many of the government initiatives which are there and how they can leverage them. So that needs to be a mission, an innovation cell in every university. Just like you have a placement cell, you need to have an innovation cell. And of course, AICT has facilitated that by calling it IIC Institutional Innovation Cell. But I do feel that these cells are just operating with a do-it list rather than seeing how we can leverage the ecosystem. Now, the third thing is, many companies, and yesterday that gentleman from the CEO of, I forget his name, anyway, he talked in the end, and he said how he has inspired, he has initiated innovation and taken innovation from young students to apply to solving his problems. I think if there is greater collaboration between industry and academia, and that can be facilitated by all these 900 incubation centers and more which are being set up, how do you draw the industry into seeing what are their problems? What are their problems which is going to help that industry? So if I were an incubator, setting up an incubator, or if I were a university setting up something, innovation in my area, I would look at the cluster of industries which are around me. I would approach them and saying, what are the problems and challenges you have which is going to make you more effective? I will also approach the government to see what are the socio-economic challenges they have. And I would do research and innovation focused on that rather than just doing it in a very haphazard manner. I think these are some of the things that universities can do and thereby institutionalize research innovation and build a culture of innovation within the university.
Thank you, Dr. Ramanan. Professor Ashwin, what's been your experience in terms of getting access to capital for Okapi?
Well, Okapi isn't probably the best example because Okapi essentially is it's sort of a policy-oriented research institution, and therefore we've never really required capital. We essentially do projects. It's more of a consulting model. But perhaps it's a little bit more relevant to talk about what many of the startups in the IIT Madras ecosystem have encountered in their search for capital. I think there are a couple of points here. First, I think, is that there are various kinds of capital. And it's a bit like it's a bit like the matrimonial ecosystem, right? I mean, you need to find the right fit for you, not necessarily the first person who comes in necessarily dangles a check. What is this best fit? I think you need somebody who can understand the entrepreneur's vision, right? And is also willing to, investing is not just cutting a check, it's also being in some sense connected over the lifetime, or at least a certain part of the trajectory of the evolution of a project. So when I would look at an investor, the questions I would have are, is this person's orientation similar to mine in terms of how they see this growing? Will they be able to support me when I encounter a bunch of these kinds of challenges? Do they have the track record of supporting companies like me and things like this? Very often what we find is many of our young entrepreneurs may not necessarily know that these are questions to ask. And there have been cases where they have therefore struggled to find funding or have sometimes been funded by the wrong investor, or the investor has funded the wrong organization, and over a period of time that does not lead to a happy ending. So one of the things that we are trying to do is to create this awareness among people. So we have, like people talk about a capital stack, we have what we call an entrepreneurship stack, and the base of that stack is evangelization. So we have a very vibrant entrepreneurship cell on campus that just constantly invites people, have them talk about their journey, whether they're an investor, whether they're a promoter, whether they're a large organization trying to acquire companies and so on, and try to get people to understand this nuance. I think if you understand this nuance, your ability to raise capital increases tenfold. And if you don't understand this nuance and you treat everybody the same, then I think you get stuck very quickly. So that's been our experience. And over a period of time, 10, 15 years ago, I know Professor Junjunwala was here yesterday, so he would have spoken about our ecosystem. From the time we started, where people are extraordinarily naive, I think we've come to a point today where both faculty and students, at least in our ecosystem, know which questions to ask. And therefore, we've been, in the recent past, having much more success in this matchmaking process between the entrepreneur and the investor than we had previously.
Thank you, Professor Ashwin. Dr. Vibha, we are in Chennai, one of India's strongest clusters for engineering, advanced manufacturing and biotech. If ATRI's Translational Center program is going to mean something concrete for the institutions here, it needs to mean something specific to this region. What sectors have been identified for such an establishment in Tamil Nadu or this geography? Do you have some kind of timeline? Are there industry partners who are going to anchor?
If I see from CSIR's point of view, we have a very good presence. As you said, there are a whole lot of course, institutions around in this area. And so we have a Leather Research Institute, we have an Engineering Research Center. We also have an Electrochemical Research Institute's Center of Batteries here. And of course, there are, the other labs, CSIO, the Scientific Instruments Organization, or even the Electronics Research Institute's presence is right here within Chennai and within a span of, I think, 10 kilometers from this place. And of course, we have Anna University, Madras University, and SRM. So all of them, and of course IIT Madras with its research park. But I think in and around Chennai, what is there is a lot of automobile thing, and so this is where our engineering and electronics and batteries, research is right there for anyone to, just go see that what is the problem they want to address, and then who could be their partners. And CSIR is very open to partnership with industry, with entrepreneurs. And industry, when I say, it includes entrepreneurs as well. It includes micro industry, medium, small scale, and of course, the large industries as well. So it's all there. And in around Chennai, as I said, it's automobiles. Then there is a textile group, a very strong textile group also around Coimbatore area. And then there's leather research and leather industry. There are many tanneries around Ranipet and all. So as you said, Tamil Nadu is very, very rich in the different industrial sectors. So I don't see any reason why anyone would not just, who knows about these industries or who goes to these places, sees what is the problem around. Why can't we make EV as not the second line, but yes, the first preference amongst the population here. That's going to solve some of our major problems as well, where fossil fuel is concerned. So, I mean, these are the sectors I can think of, not only from CSI's point of view, but also the other academia that are spread across. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Vibha. Rishi, from the Startup India side, when a startup in Tamil Nadu tries to access shared translational infrastructure, what does that process currently look like? Is there a working model, or is it still being built?
Sure. So I think, like Dr. Vibha said, Tamil Nadu is pretty rich in terms of the sectors that it operates in, or the sectors that are, of importance to Tamil Nadu. So in that context, I think there's a lot that startups in Tamil Nadu can access. If I think about early stage of prototype development startups, there are a lot of incubators operating out of Tamil Nadu, be it Chennai or Coimbatore. So I think that's a good starting point, a good vantage point to have. Building on that, of course, there's the other funding schemes and but beyond that as well, in terms of sectors, always been sector. So coming to sectors, we've always been very sector agnostic in our approach, and I mean, happy to support any startup, and in case you have any questions, happy to take them as well.
Thank you. The TRL scale that we mentioned was developed by NASA for aerospace procurement. It assumes a known customer, a defined operational environment, and a broadly linear development path. For technologies like quantum sensing, synthetic biology, or advanced materials, where the application domain is genuinely uncertain, the framework may not be the right evaluation lens. Sridhar, when you evaluate a deep tech investment, is TRL a useful signal, or are you using a different framework entirely?
TRL is one of the signals. I wouldn't say it is the only signal. TRL is one of the signals. Why I say it's, for example, I met a startup in Singapore. It was called as SingZyme, and they were making conjugate biologics, which is one of the advanced biotechnology sciences. It's actually an accelerator in terms of making the drug useful for cancer. So they were at TRL 3. So they wanted an immediate capital raise for $3 million, and then they were looking at how do we do it and how do we plan it. While just looking at the technology, before any VC could come in, Amgen acquired the technology and the company for 15 million, and the deal was done. So TRL is an important factor, but looking at which technology at what TRL makes a huge difference. For example, if I'm today making a battery technology and I'm making commonly like ferrous-ion battery, or traditionally is lithium-ion and ferrous-ion. Suppose if somebody is like kind of, apart from Toyota, who's looking into solid state and they've advanced that solid state and making a better battery, and even if they are TRL2 or TRL3, it catches the attention of everyone else, because that means that like kind of this is definitely possible. And how many people in the world are doing it? A handful of people. So that is where TRL is a signal, but looking at the technology, how niche is it, makes a huge difference. There's one more example I would say is like kind of CRISPR technology is another one. Richard Levin failed 7 times. He was a TRL3, but still got the support of academia from Stanford. And he made it huge there in terms of making sure he was able to translate that research to business. So TRL is the niche of the technology, how unique it is, it makes a difference. But that's not the only factor. The value on what it can bring to the world, the TAM SAM makes a difference.
Dr. Ramanan, please.
I'd like to just add, this is a very interesting and important question. There are 2 types of innovations which happen. One is open innovation, where you really are not posing a particular problem. You don't pose a particular challenge, but based on trends and whatever you see and see as opportunities, you innovate, and then you are able to move up the TRL levels based upon the clarity of your thinking or your foresight. The second is challenges driven by the industry and by, for example, NASA or ISRO and defense and so on, where you have the ability to define a TRL 7 to 9 requirement very accurately, because this is what I need. This is exactly the type of solution that I need. And that can trigger off innovation, which is very specific, but which can speedily get not only investment, but also support from the government, the user, as well as VC companies. So I think it's important to encourage both of these. We have seen tremendous benefits now with IDEX being open, the Innovations for Defense Excellence. That's sponsoring challenges and innovations which are very TRL specific, 7 to 9, but they are giving investment, and they are also enabling you to become a provider. And on the other hand, you're also seeing space, ISRO, they have opened up private investment as well as private participation. What I learned when I visited the US and studied the entire SBIR, the Small Business Innovation and Research Funding that they facilitate, much of it is facilitated by defense space and by the National Research Foundation of NIF in US. And there are many, many challenges which are very specific TRL 7 to 9. And it really triggers a whole lot, and Lockheed Martin and many private sector companies are willing to invest. We need to create that sort of environment here.
Dr. Vibha, Dr. Ramanan's interjection now puts the question in context. CSIR technology transfers are assessed against TRL milestones. Does that framework hold up across different domains, or are there areas where you find yourselves forcing a non-linear journey into a linear scale?
Well, for us, TRLs are there, of course, but then depends on the technology again, right? He did mention about CRISPR-Cas. So one of our labs, IGIB, Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology, has developed and engineered FN-Cas9. It's patented. We do have the freedom to operate upon that, but not the CRISPR-Cas9 technology as such, because the CRISPR part again is, we'll have to go back to Corteva for that. And that technology, the transfer has happened on a non-exclusive basis to one of the major vaccine companies in the country, Institute. And you know, the next stage, because we realize the next stage is co-development with industry. Any disease condition, we need to go in for co-development, right? There's a platform there, and you just build upon that platform using that as a, you know, for different kind of applications. So when it comes to a platform technology, maybe at early stage itself, it gets licensed. So today there is this company again, ITC, that's looking towards this to develop, you know, for some kind of plant applications. Another institute of ours has used the same technology, codon optimized it, and now we are having a whole lot of genome edited plants at different TRL levels, at different scales of development and different stages of development. And each one of them is ready for transfer. So while TRL helps us to you know, identify where our technology is, but then again, technology transfers, it all depends on the kind of technology and whether you're developing a platform or you're developing a niche technology. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Ashwin, I'm stepping into academics and the relationship to capital again. If you had to identify one specific institutional rule, a single clause in some institutional rule, university rule, which is to do with HR or IP policy, what do you think is the one that is doing the most damage to academic entrepreneurship now?
Well, I think I can only speak for IIT Madras because I'm not quite sure about other universities, but I think we have an extraordinarily enabling ecosystem, and I can't really think of any rule that is doing any damage per se. It's a question of interpretation, right? I mean, for instance, I'll give you an example. Students are allowed to take a semester off to pursue an entrepreneurial idea. Some of them do, some of them feel that you know, this might be a risk as far as job prospects are concerned, and therefore they may not do this. Sometimes people then say, oh, you're not enabling them to do this. So I think it's really more of an interpretation of the rules. But I think I want to go back a little bit to what we were talking about here. There is, I think, a little bit of a danger to academic entrepreneurship that is not so much through rules that are internal, but through perception that is external, right? And I'm going to be a little bit provocative because I would like to politely and respectfully disagree with you know, something that Mr. Ramanan said. I view science and technology as two parts of the same coin. And to me, without science, there is no technology. And to me, the role of a university is to progress science, right? So if you look at some of the greatest discoveries of our age, if you look at semiconductors, which we talked about, that is predicated on fundamental advances in the area of material sciences. Without that, you have nothing, you have no semiconductors. If you look at artificial intelligence, which none of us can stop talking about, it is predicated by fundamental advances in mathematics, specifically in probability and statistics, right? So I think universities need to be a place where people can be unabashedly theoretical and come up with these ideas that will then fuel the technologies of tomorrow. Now, universities should also, in my view, not just leave it at that, right? But also start taking these steps towards moving from science to technology, which is what we are trying to do. But I think this part about universities needing to do science is going to be critical to new technologies and ideas coming up tomorrow, right? And somehow there is a perception that we're doing too much science. In fact, I think we're doing too little science, right? And because we're doing too much science, we need to be doing more in the area of application. And what that ends up with is we end up doing innovation substitutes for things that are already there. For instance, the technology for ultrasound devices exists, but we come up with low-cost ultrasound devices, which is fantastic, right? It will benefit a lot of India. But it's not necessarily the kind of fundamental innovation that you're seeing in large language models or wafer-thin fabs and things like this. So I think that the issue is we've got to sort of also agree that universities should be unabashedly theoretical and do science, but can they also start bridging this gap between the two? And that to me is the danger, that we sort of seem to be saying, you guys are doing too much, just publishing papers, it's useless, right? Please start developing technology, okay?
Thank you, Professor Ashwin. We are on time, so I'm going to wrap up this discussion quickly, but there were lots of threads today that I would like to follow up on with the panelists, perhaps in email correspondence and so on, if you'll permit me. So just to wrap up, let's start with Rishi first. Rishi, what do you think is the single biggest human risk to all of this succeeding?
So I think when we think about deep tech, when we think about frontier technologies, what we always talk about is patient capital. So I think that is fundamental, sure. But more than that, I think it's about being just patient as human beings, and in terms of understanding that deep tech as a sector has longer timelines. You need to account for that, and be it investors, governments, policymakers, research institutions, universities, entrepreneurs. I think that is the single most important fundamental behavior that we need to have when we're building something in deep tech, be it a startup, be it a new technology, or just research for deep tech. I think that is my opinion on it.
Thank you. Dr. Ramanan.
From my point of view, the greatest risk is not taking risk. So this is the greatest risk that we have always faced in the country. You know, we have not been a country willing to take risks, and therefore we have not invested in the right amount of research, development, whatever else that we need to do. So we need our people to be risk takers, and we are in an environment today where it's affordable to take risks. It's not unaffordable to take risks. I would say 20 years ago this was not the case, but we are now in a different economy altogether. The second most important thing that I would urge everyone is, you know, we have a beautiful vision of a Viksit Bharat by 2047. And if we want to achieve that vision, it has to be embraced by everybody. It's not just somebody at the political level or the minister saying this for slogan purposes. It is really a great vision, an ennobling vision for all of us to embrace at the university level, at the district level, at individual level. And what is the vision? You know, we are talking about eliminating poverty. We are saying universal health care for all. We are talking about a growing economy, a $35 trillion economy. We are talking of inclusivity, social inclusivity, so that it doesn't leave anybody. It's talking about welfare, well-being, wellness of the entire country as well as the planet. Now, when we have such a vision, I think every one of us has an opportunity to deliberate whatever I am doing in terms of research, innovation, scientific advancement, etc. How aligned is it with that vision? And it gives a certain direction. And I think we all are saying the same thing. I don't know where he disagreed, but we are all talking about the same thing. And I think that is, it's different words and so on. But research is fundamentally important. Innovation is as important. Development is as important. When we are talking of 1.4 billion people and how do we take them to a different world of Viksit Bharat, we do have the opportunity, according to me, to be among the global top 10 most innovative countries of the world. We are at position 38, but we can become in the next decade. That's my belief.
Sridhar?
The human risk I see is quite in the sense of a classical conditioning with respect to innovators who are coming in. Suppose they are in a business of making a different kind of material science. When I see pitch decks of startups, I see AI-powered carbon credits, everything put into the mix over there. In the sense is you don't need to feed the narrative in that perspective. Be original on what you're trying to innovate and not generally play for the gallery. So that's what I would say is the human risk over there. In the sense is be innovative and original in what you're trying to bring to the table so that people can appreciate that.
Thank you. Dr. Vibha?
I'd say the greatest risk is people not following their passion, not being passionate about something, deeply passionate about something. You want to do research, be passionate about it, continue to do research. Basic research, as Professor Ashwin said, is what is going to be tomorrow's technology. Think tomorrow and focus on your basic research. If you have a passion for that, if you have a passion for problem solving, go ahead and do that. Okay, could be any problem. And studying, reading, and understanding how to solve the problem again is something you could, just take on. So this is where, where we are, I'm sorry, we're using a whole lot of jargons here. As he said, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, quantum technologies. And these are just some of the technologies. Again, innovation, startup, all these things as well. But what is it that interests you? As a student, as a teacher, as a professor, follow that. In all these things and in trying to, maybe be a part of the whole crowd, we lose our originality. We just forget what are we basically passionate about. So I would say here the basic risk is being human enough to be passionate. Let's not lose that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Viba. Professor Ashwin.
Yeah. So first of all, having disagreed with Dr. Ramanan, now I have to agree with him. Actually, I did not disagree with him. I think exactly like he said, we both said the same thing slightly differently. I was just making the point that it should be science and innovation rather than innovation instead of science. And I wanted to be a little bit provocative to get the message through. But I think now I want to agree with what he said in terms of the risk. I think at this age, particularly students, the risk to me is much lower. If you fail now, really the consequences of this are not going to be, in fact, there are benefits. Back in the day, there used to be this joke that start up a company, if you succeed, obviously the company becomes really big. If you fail, you can go join Microsoft because they wanted people with that experience of having started a company and things like this. So the experience that you get is absolutely invaluable, right? Success is going to be a bonus. So I really think there is no risk particularly if you're a student thinking about doing this. If you don't do it now, when will you do it? So I would just say go for it.
Thank you so much. You've been an amazing panel. Like I mentioned, I hope to be in touch with you in our WhatsApp group. Thank you very much. Yeah. One question. And please ask the question.
Yes.
We are all thanked already.
Right.
Question.
My name is Vijayan, and then I would like to tell three things. One, why does the government of India have a long list of questions for innovations? You put it three things. One, the name. Number two, the Aadhaar or PAN card. Number three, the problem, and how that problem has not been solved by IITs or anything else. Then you fund us. Don't give a list of 10 or 15. Number two is, once you have started a company, why should we be wasting our time on EF, filling and other things? Create a research company so that we don't have to worry about all this, the fundamental of business. Let us complete the research and then get into this thing. Number three is, once we have done the prototypes and other thing, is it possible for the CSR funded giving companies to mass produce as a CSR so that we are able to do this? Researchers may not be good manufacturers. Researchers may not be good what is called marketers. These three things are very important. If you want to have techs for better India, you must create links.
In the interest of time, we'll answer only the third one. The first two are editorial, so we'll take the third one. Who'd like to take it? Dr. Viba, would you like to take it? Or?
Well, I could agree more. You want to start a research company, please do. Okay, who knows, your research becomes so beneficial that there are companies who want to invest in you, maybe acquire your company too. So why not do that? I don't see why you should not start a research company of your own. Okay, so in that case, all the best to you, and do come up with some real good research where not only the government but even industry and the venture capitalists would like to invest in you. Yeah. Sure, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Um, can we just meet off the days? We have to start off the next session. Thank you so much, Dr. Vibha, Sridhar, Dr. Ramanan, Rishi, and Professor Ashwin.
Can we have a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for our wonderful panelists and moderators for such a thought-provoking session? Thank you once again, thank you. So we just take 2 minutes for arranging the chairs. So we have the next session coming up, so kindly stay back for an interesting session that's going to happen on the topic leveraging a multidisciplinary university ecosystem for enabling the deep tech revolution. So we will start that ASAP.